was talking about when it comes to money and budgets. Okay, but first, let's hear what the people had to say in the streets.
Jina naitwa Irene Mwaura. Serikali wanapokuja kuleta hii mambo ya VAT kuongezea vitu kwa wananchi, waangalie sahi kama hii nchi yetu ya Kenya, unapata kuna cash flow. So unapata kama kuna cash flow, bado wananchi wanafinyika. So wakati wanakuja tena kuongezea hii VAT, utapata bado watu watazidi kufinyilika. Vitu zinaendelea kupanda juu na watu hana pesa. Na wale ambao tunategemea pia hawana pesa. So utapata sisi wote tutakuwa na nchi ambayo ni ya Kenya, ambayo wananchi wote wako na umaskini. Kabla waongezee vitu, kukuwe na cash flow. Sinaona kukikuwa na cash flow, tunajua kila mwananchi, kila mtu mahali yako, hata kama anafanya kazi kwa serikali ama kwa huku, kuna kila mtu ako na pesa. Lakini imagine unaongezea mwananchi ambaye hana pesa kwa mfuko vitu. Sini poverty, we are creating poverty in our nation.
Kwa jina naitwa Kingori. Mambo ya finance bill imeenda sasa kutuweka katika shimo. Manake katika tukiongezwa mzigo na ile tulikuwa naye, tuletwa mzigo ingine, ni kama sasa tunaambiwa tukibirie kwa kichaka. Kwa sababu kama sasa hii gari nilileta hapa inafanyaga kazi, tulikosa pesa, tulimwaga hilo tukakosa pesa ya kununua oil kwa sababu hatuna pesa. Kwa sababu kila kitu imepanda. Mambo ya magari, kuna hiyo insurance imepanda. Sasa tukienda kwa mkulima, hata ule hata kwa pikipiki, na mambo yake imepanda. Ukienda kwa mkate imepanda. Tuseme kila kitu, hata ukizaa mtoto diapers imepanda. Kwa hivyo ni kama hii serikali inataka tutoroke kabisa hii nchi, tukae nchi nyingine. Na ningetaka vile walituambia ndini hasara, atueleze hiyo hasara ilikuwa inamini namna gani. Ni kutumaliza watu wote wakuwe hasara, kwa sababu wao ndio dynasty sasa. Sisi ni mahasara.
Jina mimi naitwa Joana Kinyi, mfanyibiashara katika Buruburu, Katulo Road, Rabai. Sisi ni wana biashara tudogo, na nilikuwa nataka kuongelea juu ya financial bill. Mimi nilikuwa naomba serikali iangalie watu wadogo. Juu kama alisema bottom up, wache ikue bottom up. Kwa sasa hii warahia wenye hawana chochote ndio wanaumia, na wenye wako na pesa wanasikia vizuri. Kwa hivyo hii financial bill ikikuja, sisi rahia ndio tunaenda kuumia. Kila kitu bei iko juu. Kwa hivyo sisi tunaomba serikali waangalie wananchi wa chini. Sisi ndio tunapiga kura, na sisi ndio tutawaondoa na tunawaweka. Kwa hivyo tunaomba Bwana President William Ruto, tafadhali waangalie watu wa chini. Sisi wa mama, kuna wajane, kuna wenye hata wana kazi. Sahi watu wanabomolewa manyumba, hakuna hata mahali mtu ataenda. Sasa wewe unataka ushuru na hakuna mahali anafanya kazi. Tafadhali serikali waache kuumiza watu wa chini.
Na maisha yetu ya hasara venye alikuwa ametuahidi, tafadhali serikali tuangalieni, na serikali acha kutusupua. Juu sasa tutafanya nini? Kusema tu kweli, hakuna kazi, hakuna nini. Sisi tunahangaika huku Nairobi aone, lakini Ruto tuko naye pamoja. Kama utatusaidia kesho, tuangalilia maslahi yetu ya maasha.
As you can hear, the ordinary mwananchi is it gets to a place he's really bitter about some of the provisions and the areas that the government wants to tax, to get money from his pocket. And it's basically if what the CS Treasury or Treasury said yesterday at the Finance Committee in Parliament is anything to go by, a lot of it has to do with covering the debt portfolio of this country. It has gone very high. Bernard, just before we went for the break, we had started on the debt portfolio, which now stands at 11.2 trillion.
Yes. Yeah, the debt, when we did the budget 2023-2024, the debt was 9.6 trillion. Now it has grown to 11.2 trillion. Which, and as I was explaining, 55% of that debt is actually foreign denominated, currencies.
Yes.
It's not in local currency.
Yes.
And what is the domestic debt is 45%, which attracts interest cost. Now the foreign debt, the problem with the foreign debt, it brings the interest risk because you are paying interest cost. It also brings the risk of foreign exchange fluctuations.
Yes.
So if the Kenya shilling depreciates, then the debt automatically grows. And since our revenues mainly generate in Kenya shillings, then you find that it is at a disadvantage for the country. Yeah, so the growing foreign debt is always a concern to the country.
I'm seeing my friend Simon here is having a problem getting your picture. Let me just go back and bring the graphics. Let me show you what the executive show you a graphic on how much is being budgeted for the executive. As you can see, as Simon works on the picture, as you can see, the office of the president, the amount that has been set aside for them is 5.3 billion. That's the office of the president. State House is around 9.4 billion. Deputy president is 4.8 billion. And I'm hoping that the deputy president with this money is not going to be taking the Kenya Airways plane and carrying his own bag as he goes to Mombasa, because 4.8 billion shillings should be sufficient for that. Then we have the Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is Musalia Mudavadi. His budget is around 1.1 billion shillings. Then the Ministry of Defense has been allocated a budget of 168 million shillings, while the Office of the Spouse of the Deputy President has 583 million shillings. 583 million shillings. So these are the resources that have been allocated to the executive. Now, in a couple of minutes, we see also the excise duty, some of the VAT and stuff, and 8 items that will be impacted by excise duties. You have edible oils, which will be at 25%. So definitely when this is implemented, the introduction of tax on advertising on internet and social media, that's also going to come on. But I was saying on the 25% excise duty, this simply means that we are going to pay more for edible oils. 25%, that's a humongous bit. Then plastic package is going to go up by 10%. 10%, it's going to go up by 10%. That means, again, when companies are going to package whatever it is they package that has plastic packages on it, what is going to happen is that you're going to be charged more on this. And then we need to find out from the budget proposals who are the people who are going to lose the most. The areas that, that are going to lose in as far as this budget is concerned. We have the agriculture. It has been cut down by 12.6 billion shillings. And Bernard will touch a little bit on this, because a budget policy statements basically indicates the focus that a government wants to take on its budget. If the agriculture budget is being trimmed by 12.6 billion, that is not a good sign. We have medical services that's going to go with around slightly, is it 10.6 billion? That's a huge trim. And then you have the education, higher and basic. It's going to be trimmed by 55 billion shillings. Ministry of Roads is going to be trimmed by 48 billion. And then we also have something else here, petroleum, by 25 billion. 25 billion is going to be trimmed by 25 billion shillings. So these are some of the things, the areas that are going to be impacted greatly by this budget. These are the areas that are going to be impacted, that are going to be losers in this particular area. Bernard, let me see whether I need to hear from my guys whether that they can now get you on camera, right? So that we can have that conversation in as far as you know, agriculture taking such a major trim. I mean, the policy, budget policy statement of any government, when you say you're trimming agriculture, but that percentage, that should concern us, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it should be a major concern for us. The kind of budget we are doing is you just get the portfolio figures.
Yes.
And it doesn't go to the details.
Yes.
So at times, for us to be able to examine and understand what exactly is being affected, then we need to see what are the items in that budget. So positive side is if they are looked at the expenditure and the seen wastage areas, and that is what has been scrapped off, then it should be something good for us, because we want to manage expenditure. But if it's going to affect flagship issues like provision of fertilizer, which farmers are crying for, then it becomes an issue again. So
basically we should use a toothpick to find out exactly which areas are being affected.
Exactly, yes. I'll touch on the Minister of Education, whereby school feeding program was
one of the things that was being targeted for scrapping.
Exactly, and we saw the PS pitching for it to be restored and even increased, because he was saying that it's a benefit the children are gotten used to, and with the school feeding program is able to bring in more children to school. So those are the areas we need to look at. If actually that is an area which has been affected, then we need to rethink that and see how can it be restored, and we move forward with that. To me, I would want to see what are the items. And this morning I was also listening to debate, and one of the members of parliament was saying that also they also don't have the items. So at times they also get those kind of...
They're just given a figure without being told exactly what is going to be edited.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not an easy decision to make when you don't have the actual items to see what is being affected. I'll mention also on the petroleum issue, you notice we've been subsidizing our petroleum imports. And this government decided not to subsidize. So that can be explained why they are reducing the petroleum budget by 25 billion, because we don't need to subsidize, we let it float. So that could be a good thing, because again they say you are not able to account for that subsidy very well. Maybe it goes to a few pockets. So if you can...
not even maybe. The way things happen in Kenya, it's not a maybe. It ends up in people's pockets.
Where you don't have facts, you can't really put it. But that could be one of the issues to avoid wastage. So generally, key ministries like Minister of Education, Minister of Health, when you see these cuts, of course, because this is where Mwananchi is really touched. We really need to examine what is it that is being reduced. Because again, taxation is supposed to, again, give equity to Mwananchi. That we took your money this way, but equity, I give you this kind.
You will benefit this way.
This way, yes. And part of that is, key is Minister of Education, Minister of Health, roads and all that. So if you are not seeing it, then it becomes an issue.
Actually, I was listening to CS Transport, Murkomen, who is actually pushing to increase the cost of fuel by 7 shillings. And he's saying that this 7 shilling is supposed to take care of the dilapidated roads that we have today, I guess as a result of the floods that were experienced. But if you look at people like you and I, people who use motorized transport, and basically almost everybody, we have the circulation,
the motor vehicle circulation tax.
Motor vehicle circulation tax, where you will pay the insurer a certain percentage of the value of your vehicle.
2.5%.
2.5% of the value of your vehicle is what you're going to pay to the insurer for that particular. And then now you have again 7 shillings added on the cost of fuel. This is going to impact very negatively on quite a number of people.
Yeah, true. The government in this budget, they come up with so many strategies to raise taxation. When you talk of direct tax and indirect taxation.
Yes.
And that's why Mwananchi is crying. There's a little bit of lack of sensitivity to Mwananchi, because the same person you're taxing and overtaxing.
Yes. And
the impact is when analyze is not what people are seeing.
Yes.
For example, like I've seen you in what you are shown on edible oils.
Yes.
The impact of excise duty, plastic duty, eco levy, and the VAT increase is going to bring a total of actually 56%.
56%?
Yeah, difference in the price when it lands on the shelf.
Yes.
On the shelf. And that is why people are wondering, are we encouraging manufacturing of oils, edible oils in Kenya? Because if you are going to increase by that 56%, then the cost of cooking oil is going to go up astronomically. And that becomes a problem. And you see, they are not saying directly it is this one tax, but you introduce a taxation to the manufacturer when he's importing.
Yes.
You introduce this and this.
But there's VAT, there's excise duty,
there's custom duty,
and there's also the taxation on the plastic packaging. And that edible oil itself. So you're taxing edible oil, you're taxing the packaging because it's packaged or using the plastic aspect.
Exactly.
So you're doing that, and then you slap a 16% VAT on it.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, yeah. So let's say even like the bread, we were saying maybe to go up by 10 bob. But now if there is a pepper which is also being taxed, there is also fuel levy, transport costs. So the manufacturer is likely to increase by higher amount of shillings than the 10 shillings you are talking about.
Now let me ask you, because right now we are seeing a fiscal policy that being implemented that is so being resisted by the people. People are hating to pay taxes in Kenya because and that's the wrong culture that is being pushed, and you cannot blame the people because the taxation has gone so high. Isn't it possible to come up with a tax regime that taxes little but spreads the tax base, so you have more people paying taxes without negatively impacting them, and you'll have more people seeking to pay taxes than right now. People are they're trying always a means not to pay this tax because it impacts negatively on their numbers.
True, and most professionals, that's what they are recommending, that let us not increase the rates of taxation, but increase the base, so that we can increase the total revenue being collected, but we don't have to increase the rate, so that as we bring in more sectors into taxable income, then we are able to increase our tax collection. And there are strategies which have come up to be able to do that, like the e-teams, which is being encouraged. As more people register and start using e-teams, then they'll come into the tax bracket. You've seen also the Internet of Things. People are also being taxed. Anybody who is involved in that. So it is a growing area. The only issue is then it takes time to grow that, and the people to get used and to perfect that. People to register and start getting used to it. The authorities to understand where their gaps are and to improve and to ensure that systems are working. But we are in too much hurry to move. And that is why you see now the taxman is becoming desperate and just upping the rates. That's why in the media term paper which was lodged, actually they anticipate by 2027 the taxes will start coming down because the base will have grown.
2027?
Because that medium term paper ends 2027. So they are saying by the time we get to that period, the tax base will have increased because so many people have been included in paying taxes. Then these high rates will now start being reversed slowly to benefit of Mwananchi. But it seems now we are in a hurry, we really need to collect. That's why
we're going for everything.
For everything. The only problem is going to the same person, because if you look at direct taxation rules, but people who are working, it's not that the numbers have grown, and it's not that the salaries have grown. So you are taxing the same pay slip and just increasing, taking more.
Yes.
And as I said, if the dividend of the services is not being given, I think Kenyans will not mind. Like, if I paid 50% of my tax, of my salary as tax, but I don't have to pay school fees for my child, I don't have to pay health care, roads are good, then there'll be no issue. But the problem is,
I'm being taxed.
You still have to go and do all these things on your own.
Yeah, I'm being taxed, and it's the same person who's being taxed.
Yes.
I mean, the same pay slip is the one that is being taxed.
Yes.
So let's go back to the debt burden of this country. As you were saying, we are now at 11.2 trillion.
Yes.
Which is 72% of the GDP.
Yes. Yes.
When they took over, you said that the debt burden, the debt portfolio was at how much?
Around 9.6.
9.6. So now it's gone to 11.2. That's a huge jump within such a short period.
Yeah, we still need to understand what is the breakdown, but mainly either valuation was done by exchange rates going up, because maybe by the time Uhuru was handing over, maybe the shillings were nearer to 100 shillings.
Yes.
Now we are talking about 135,
yes.
Average 135, 140, between 130 to 140.
So that could have played a role.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes.
So that valuation by foreign exchange, and seeing that almost 55% of the debt is in foreign currency, then that impacts it negatively.
Yes.
Number two is the maturing debt also could have attracted interest.
Yes.
There could have also been rollovers.
Yeah.
So you find even without having to borrow fresh, already you are incurring more debt because of interest cost. So that is where they're
actually saying the amount of money we are going to pay for as interest for the loans that we have is 1 trillion.
1 trillion, yes.
So we are going to collect whatever it is that we are going to collect, but 1 trillion is literally going to go to pay interest alone of loans.
And not reducing the principal. So that leaves us in a bigger problem. Because if it was reducing the actual debt, also the interest cost will also come down.
Yes.
So those are the risks we need.
So even when we pay the 1 trillion, we've not touched on the principal.
Yeah, that is where the problem is.
It's just interest.
Interest, exactly.
That's a huge amount. We are expecting to raise 4 trillion, and of this 1 trillion is going to pay interest of loans.
Yeah, so loans are expensive, and it's high time the government came up with strategy on how to address it. And though increasing taxation is one of it, also looking at wastage in government is an important aspect. There was talk about merging certain state agencies or departments, which seem to be doing the same thing, which could also end up saving a lot of money for the government and Mwananchi. There was also,
but that hasn't taken place.
It has not been implemented effectively as it should. Recently, the president talked to some certain parastatal heads to reduce their budget by 30%.
Yes.
If that could cut across
Yes.
The non-critical areas,
Yes,
and cut those kind of expenditure,
yes,
then that will also bring a lot of savings to the country, and use the same resources now to reduce the debt,
yes,
so that we don't keep on being on the spiral, borrowing to pay, and
yes,
the debt is growing and growing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of wastage in the government.
There's a lot of
duplication of things by different departments.
Exactly. Yeah. Which needs to be addressed. So we need to really be able to audit this and see what we need to merge, what we need to stop this wastage, and save money for the country.
Yeah, I was listening to some of the measures that have been put in place by a country like Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso has a new president called Traore, a young gentleman, military guy. When he came into the government, the first thing he did, obviously the presidential salary has to go up, but he refused. He said he's going to continue with the same salary he was receiving in the military. And then he has reduced everything in terms of the packs that the ministers and all those people were receiving. He has reduced them, and he has started projects in Burkina Faso that are supposed to spearhead the growth of the country. The country was exporting raw gold. I mean, people would just harvest the soil and go with it. He's now in the process of developing what you can call a gold refinery, and it's actually doing very well. These are the kind of things that we want to see. If you're saying you're cutting down on cost, let us see you cutting down on costs.
Yes.
Because after all is said and done, we are the ones who are paying for it.
Yes.
We are paying for these costs. But the MPs are now seeking to have the Parliamentary Service Commission paying determining their salaries, and they will be, even MPs from Nairobi are saying they need to be paid mileage allowances. At a time when the country is saying we need to be cutting down on costs, they're increasing their costs. So it's having a negative effect.
Exactly, and that is the unfortunate thing about our entire system, and that is what, when we are off, that's what we are discussing.
Yes.
That everyone seems to want to dip their fingers in the kitty.
Yes.
And take as much as they can, but no one is telling us how to build that kitty, how to grow that kitty. And that is where the problem is. If this taxation being said or being proposed was to bring fantastic issues like investment,
yes,
and the people can see these are dividends you're going to get from this, the pain will be less. But if you're only addressing expenditure, office of the president, this and that, and you're not really addressing production, then it becomes a problem.
If you look at initially the Vision 2030 was supposed to turn Kenya into an industrialized country.
Exactly.
If you look at the policies that are being implemented, do you see these policies targeting us and moving us towards achieving that really?
The problem is, if you look at the development budget, is a very small figure, less than a trillion. And the Vision 2030 projects are supposed to be financed so that we can get those dividends. So you find if you allocate party allocations, then it means then you're only paying staff, officers, but you're not really going to the development aspect of it, so that project can become profitable to the country. And that is where the problem is. So we need to change the mindset and invest more on these projects. There are so many sectors which have been left out. Like Kenya now, we cannot talk about leather industries.
Yes.
Because all our skins and hides
are exported
and processed. how does that department, who gives those licenses when the country is, has a shortage?
Yes.
And why can that be used?
We're exporting hides,
Yeah.
and we have a shortage.
We have a shortage. Then we have to import again.
we export them raw,
Yeah.
and then we import shoes.
Exactly. Yeah. So now those are the problems, because, and why is someone not addressing it? Because there is a huge land in Athi River which had been allocated during Uhuru's time,
Yes,
to grow that kind of industry, but nothing is being done. So why can't that be done, so that all the hides coming from this country and maybe in East African region can be processed here and produce leather goods, leather products which can be exported. We do value addition and export and have more money. You know, some of the investment really don't need to spend so much money. The government
Yes.
can spur this, and then you invite even other like-minded people to come and invest, private sector to do it. Government needs only to start with the initial capital.
Yes.
But the fact that they are not doing it, then it becomes an issue.
because if you look at Uganda and Tanzania, I remember listening to President Yoweri Museveni saying that iron ore. There were people who are coming and just harvesting iron ore in its raw form and exporting it to India to go process it, and then the country imports iron into the country, yet the raw material was taken from his country. And in fact, one of the gentlemen that was doing that is a Kenyan. And so he banned the exportation of raw materials. So, and told the Kenyan gentleman that if you're going to access our iron ore, you will have to build a company in Uganda, so that you harvest it, you process it here, then whatever you do with it, you do it with it from here.
Yes.
If you're going to export, the country has to benefit, jobs have to be created. The same thing, Tanzania, the tanzanite, the green garnet, tanzanite actually, was being harvested by some Chinese in, just people taking soil and going with it, they work on it, and they make the most profit. We don't seem to have come up with a policy that is going to stop people from harvesting raw materials in Kenya. We're still exporting raw.
Yes. If you look at what the country loses in terms of natural resources that we are endowed with, even some people don't want to tell you that we have this and that and that,
yes,
because they are extracting and selling as raw materials.
Yes.
Simple things like the other day, there was a bulletin in the media on baobab tree
yes,
in the coast, whereby somebody's coming and buy very old baobab trees and cutting them down. Yes. And the local people don't understand what is going on.
Yes. Yeah.
The stories you are talking about, I've also met a scientist who explained to me the same thing.
Yes.
He trained in Israel, and he was saying there are some people who are building a road, and what they saw, they were scooping and sending it abroad.
Yes.
But when he went and tested, he found actually what they are exporting is the soil has got iron ore.
So this is Kenya.
This is Kenya. So when you now who authorizes this kind of soil to be exported?
Yes.
And how come that the government does not have the machinery to test these things?
Yes.
So we need to come up with the rules to protect our natural resources and to open our minds so that we are not taken advantage of.
Yes.
Because a lot of resources in Kenya and in Africa are being stolen by people because we are being blind.
Yes.
And even when you know, the people should know are looking the other way to allow these things to be stolen.
Because they're being paid some money.
Exactly. Yes.
And the country could be making a lot of money from these resources, so that we don't have to really impose very heavy taxes on the people, because there's a lot of resources that we have as a country. We have iron ore, we have cobalt, which is one of the most sought after mineral in as far as, you know, phones manufacturing is concerned.
Exactly.
We have coal in this country. We have so many resources, but it's either they're being used and being exported without the country knowing, or there's some, as they say, the country is owned by certain people.
Yeah.
Maybe the owners of Kenya are doing what they need to do. We have so many resources, and seeing that we are just exporting raw material is really a disservice to the people, taxpayer of this country.
It's a disaster actually, because the question is, for how long then can you continue taxing people without increasing their incomes?
Yes.
And the budget expenditure is, the government expenditure is just expanding.
Yes.
Then it is going to be a problem. So we need to bring in more sectors into the economy. We need to employ more. We need to invest more, so that the actual receivables are more than what we are doing. Otherwise, with the greedy that people have, only getting from the kitty and not growing that kitty, then the country cannot go further.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, let's take a short break. I need to take some water, some hot water. Let's take that short break, and when we come back, we continue with this as we bring the curtains down on the show. Remember, in the afternoon, the CS Treasury Ndungu will be reading the budget, and then afterward, what happens is that the MPs will get into debate about the budgets and see what they are going to pass, what they are not going to pass. Let's hope that they have the interests of the people at heart. Let's take that short break.